Horror movies, we love them, we hate them, but we can't get enough of them. And the first half of this particular decade has offered a veritable cornucopia of options, subgenres, dom genres, anything that you want to enjoy, anything that you love to hate from the horror genres. Basically, you are satiated. Sure, we had theaters open for a few months of the beginning of this decade. Everything came to a grinding halt. We had to sit at home and deal with our weird selves and basically try to soak in, take in, ingest, and swallow, getting right down our gullet, getting everything deep throating as much horror as possible until cinemas open back up. Some don't want to go back into the theaters. They want to sit at home and basically not be out in the weird, cruel world. And to be perfectly honest, we have tons of quality horror movies to talk about. Eventually, because I'm here to talk about the worst horror offerings. The offerings where you're like, holy shit, what were the studios thinking? Or were they thinking? Or how many drugs and how many alcoholic drinks did they consume? I'm John Rentham with the 25 worst horror movies of the decade so far, with some honorable mentions. Let me know your worst horror movies of the decade so far in the comments, please, as we approach the halfway point of this decade. It has been quite the experience. And I actually had to go back and look through my various end-of-year videos to try and remember what some of my top fives were. I remembered my number one and my number two choices, but also I had to flip a lot of this shit around. And I realized I watched a lot of shit, and I do have best horror movies of the decade so far list, and I also have best movies and worst movies of 2024 and of the decade so far still to come. It's been quite the ride. I thank you guys very much for tuning in. So, honorable mentions, here we go. The Price We Pay, a bunch of stupid criminals, equally stupid heroines, and weird experiments. And it's all over in 80 minutes, yet somehow manages to go nowhere. Pet Sematary Bloodlines. Who asked for a prequel to Pet Sematary? Who asked for the first Pet Sematary, to be perfectly honest? I mean, that one was all right. That little shit had it coming. But nevertheless, this was terrible. It was just shoved out on Paramount Plus, and really should have been shoved into a goddamn wood chipper. We go to Latency. This did not make the top 25 worst of the decade. That shows you what we're in for. If you've seen Latency, i.e. all of 5 people that have maybe watched it, I watched it in theater. I actually did about a round trip of an hour to go watch this after a shift just because. And my God, I hated it. Absolutely hated it. Sasha Loss, bless her. She tried, but maybe being a leading woman isn't what she's cut out for. And Malignant. Yeah, why does my state always get bad movies? Why do we always get movies that are absolute, like, great concepts, but just horribly executed? It wasn't funny, it wasn't scary, it wasn't anything good. Nevertheless, top 25, here we go. The Watchers. Yeah, Ashana, Lama Lama Ding Dong, Chang 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 Shabab, M. Night Shyamalan decided to get his daughters into movies. Oh, fuck no. So, yeah, The Watchers had an interesting concept. The gorgeous Georgina Campbell. You have a few other people in this, and you have an idea that could have worked, but unfortunately she got her dad's worst qualities, and The Watchers just ends up being ho 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 Green Giant. Ends up just being one of the worst goddamn offerings. I mean, I didn't think it'd be very good. I'm like, all right, concept-wise, this might be able to work. No, it really fucking couldn't. I was actually baffled. So we go to Sleeping Beauties. As far as quality, this really should be in the top 5 because it is so bad. The acting is so terrible. The hero of this particular thing is so goddamn insipid and whiny and stupid as a character. I don't mean as an actress. But just the special effects or lack thereof. The villain, the attempts to twists and turns, they don't fucking work. I think this is on Tubi still. It is, I can't remember if it was a Tubi original or just a movie shoved out on Tubi, but it is really, really fucking bad. The fact, though, that you guys, if you've watched my channel for a bit, you know how much I hate it. Guess what? The fact that it's this low says something about what's coming up on this list. We go to There's Something Wrong with the Children. Oh, fuck yeah, there is. These little shits should have been, goddamn, no wire hangers. The characters, not the actual children. My God, where to start with this? Stupidest parents in the goddamn world. Kids that aren't worth rooting for. Like, oh, you don't want to see something bad happen to them? No, they're little stupid shits, and I couldn't actually wait to see if they goddamn croaked. And then the fact that this, yes, it was an indie film. It didn't have a big budget, and the possessed children motif can be creepy. They didn't even try with this. They did not try. They didn't try to do anything positive with this. They didn't try to even have a little bit of fun with this. The comedy didn't hit. Terrible characters, terrible rights. Oh, Jesus, terrible writing. God damn it. So let's get to the turning. You know, I wanted to actually leave the turning off this list because I didn't mind at least some of it for a bit because it had a good atmosphere. It had a good, cast. It had a good gothic horror setting. And then they just fucking forgot to put an ending. It's like they literally did 75 to 80% of the movie and said, nope, oh, wait, shit. The funding got pulled. Just cut to black. Yeah, that's fine. We'll just shove that out. Yeah, the turning. The turning of the screw, or taming of the turning of the screw, I think. I thought it was the turning of the shrew. Nevertheless, so we go Brahms the Boy 2, number 21. My God, even The Boy wasn't that great. They retconned that and somehow made it worse. Good job. Good fucking job. Let's not have it be a boy that lives in the walls. The internet service provider that's the boy is in your walls. That's a deep cut for podcast fans that only a few people will get. And let's just have him be really fucking stupid. Let's have the doll be possessed. Let's have the doll take over this kid that, honestly, this kid could have been taken over by a freaking piece of rice paper because the kid was really fucking stupid as far as a character. I don't know if the child was stupid. Maybe he was. Maybe that's why he was so good in the movie, because he was basically born without a brainstem. That's mean to say about the kid, but it makes sense given the fact that everybody involved in this production didn't have an attached brainstem, even though there are some talented people in the cast. And yeah, Brahms the Boy 2 was something they actually thought was a good idea. Well, it wasn't. Okay, I'm going to actually go with I'm going to briefly mention two. The Candyman sequel, retcon, continuation that nobody asked for, number 20. It was bad, really bad. Rest in peace, Tony Todd. But I'm going to actually give this to The Grudge. Yes, the remake of The Grudge. That was just fucking terrible. Inhumanely bad. So badly lit. An unnecessary remake, which might have worked if you just decided to actually do something different. And I don't mean something different like, oh, let's make it bad. No, let's just put a little bit of a twist on it. Keep some of the same themes, but carry the story forward. Nobody asked for a remake of The Grudge, because even the original, the U.S. remake, that is, was fine, but not that great, because Sarah Michelle Gellar, bless her, still looks great, was not really able to act her way out of that goddamn movie. And yeah, I'm just going to give it to The Grudge instead of Candyman. So yeah, 25-ish, it's my list. Fuck you. It has been a long 5 years. What do you want from me? There haven't been a particular cornucopia of movies to really choose from that have been great. Or have there? You'll have to wait for that list. So, number 19, Army of the Dead. I love Batista, and I love a couple of the other cast members in this, but Zack Snyder needs to be charged with war crimes for what he fucking did here. Zack Snyder, with a massive budget and just, insipid dialogue, ran way too goddamn long. It was well over 2 goddamn hours. And yeah, that would be fine if you had characters worth investing in, except they don't. It's impressive just what they wasted Batista's talents on. And Batista is very good. He's been in a lot of bad shit, but he's usually been pretty good. Knock at the Cabin, which I almost put on this goddamn list, but then decided, it wasn't really a horror movie. It was just horrifying it got made. But Army of the Dead, everything wrong with the zombie genre, with a huge budget. That's basically it. Number 18, Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City. Fuck it. Fuck everybody involved in this. Terrible. A very, very terrible, miserable experience. As somebody that was not the biggest fan of the Resident Evil, the games in general because of the tank controls, at least in the first couple, but at least the Leon, memes are actually kind of funny. And there were a couple moments where I'm like, okay, they might be trying to lean into the goofiness of the first game. No, they didn't do that. They couldn't do that. They weren't capable of doing that. And the cast, while potential was there, totally wasted. Terrible goddamn dialogue. Absolutely terrible. And just repetitive stuff with this, with the goddamn Resident Evil franchise, the liquor and that kind of stuff. At least I think the liquor was in that one. I have not seen that movie since it came out, and I'm just going off of memory, and it was really not very good. That's why I was here. Let's go to number 17, The Curse of the Necklace. Okay, I might be being a little unfair to this movie since it had enough of budget that you could have found in the fucking couch cushions of a couch left in an abandoned house for about 15 years. They had the roof torn off, and a monsoon hit it, and then it got set on fire and everything, and then basically it got incinerated in a volcano, and it got drug into the earth and then spat back out. Nevertheless, The Curse of the Necklace was absolutely horrendous. Bad lighting, bad acting, apparently a pretty popular review, by the way, on my list. By the way, check out my Real Honest Movie Reviews playlist if you would like, because I've done full reviews of all these. Though, do bear in mind if you see any of them from, like, say, 2020, 2021, bear in mind opinions can change slightly, and sometimes I might rank something a lot higher in one year in comparison to another year. But yeah, The Curse of the Necklace is one of the more recent ones that I've watched as of this recording, and was just dog shit. Just terrible ending also. Horrible opening, horrible ending, and hinting at a possible sequel. Fuck you. Number 16, Fantasy Island. You know, Lucy Hale makes bad movie choices. She makes really bad movie choices. Truth or Dare in this. I mean, yeah, she was in Pretty Little Liars, and she seems nice, and she seems like she wants to do good. And a horror version of Fantasy Island wasn't the worst idea, but then Blumhouse. Fuck you, Blumhouse. Fuck you, Jason Blum. Fuck your mother for giving birth to you, you bastard. Anyway, Fantasy Island was just one of the déplain, boss, déplain. It had, again, potential if you just leaned into goofiness and, you know, wove some horror in there. No. Just terrible concept. Or at least terrible execution. What could have actually worked did not work at all because they didn't know what the fuck they were goddamn doing. So, yeah, that's why Fantasy Island is here. And the fact that Night Swim is not on here, the fact that Afraid is not on here, that other Blumhouse movies are not on here is really fucking saying something, because, yeah, this was really, really bad. Like, really, really terrible. Ooh, let's get to number 15, Terrifier 2. I'm going to keep this short and sweet. I thought that while at first it was kind of all right, it was a punishing length. It was too mean-spirited for no reason. I don't mind horror that just treats people like bodies and beats them up and stuff like that, but you have to earn that shit, and Terrifier 2 didn't. Now, Lauren Lavera, absolute beauty. Fucking incredible. Goddamn goddess. And Terrifier 3 actually surprised me as something that I really ended up enjoying. Maybe I'll refer to it on my best, horror movies of the decade so far list. But this one had it been maybe an hour and 40 minutes, I might have put up with it. But the fact is, this stretch, trying to do extra lore, okay, you're doing it based off of a silly, 86-minute movie with Jenna Cannell that wasn't great, but had that nice kill where that girl got split down the middle. This had just stuff where I'm like, okay, no, this wore me down. And the reason I'm putting it up here is because it reminds me of just how much I was disappointed when I saw Terrifier 3 that Terrifier 2 wasn't better, at least to me. So, number 14, Trap. You could argue this is satire. I argue that they don't even know how to spell satire. I argue that M. Night Shyamalan doesn't know what words mean. And I don't think has known what words mean in a while. He has not been able to write a good movie in a while. He hasn't been able to direct a good movie in a while. And Trap is a perfect example. He put his daughter as a singer, and admittedly, she can sing nice. But, he had her act. Stop putting your kids in movies when they can't do anything, you idiot. And he also puts himself in a movie. And look, it's about a concert. Josh Hartnett is trapped there with his daughter. There's a reason for that. You've seen the trailer. I mean, it's not really much of a twist. But the fact that this movie actually, it felt so long. I think it's an hour and like 40-something minutes. And it felt at least 30 minutes longer than that. It actually felt longer than Terrifier 3. And the more they try to, develop the plot, like the twists and turns and stuff like that, there's not anything that's really surprising. And then in the third act, it just gets even worse. So much worse. My God. Felt bad for the girl playing his daughter because that kid at least seemed to try. But yeah, M. Night's daughter, she can't act. She can sing. Stick to that. Number 13, Fear. Let's put T.I. in a movie because that's what the world was crying out for in 2023. I think it was 2023. Yeah, it was because that's when Infinity Pool came out. And I did a back-to-back feature of this, or a double feature. Fear was not to be confused with Mark Wahlberg, Reese Witherspoon roller coaster of fingering. Oh boy, if you get that, then you are as old as me and you were traumatized by whatever the fuck that was. I've heard of amusement parks, but man, geez, that's a weird ride. Fear has to do with people gathering during the pandemic at a house to study their fears. And then much like, late 90s, early 2000s stuff where special effects and a weird evil presence happens to be part of this whole goddamn thing. And ooh, Barracuda. Yeah, I don't know what the hell this was supposed to be. It wasn't good, though. By the way, The Devil Conspiracy also should deserve a shout, but The Devil Conspiracy is not even necessarily horror. It's kind of horror adjacent. And that's why, I might shout it here a little bit, but maybe that'll be in my worst movies of the decade, the official list. I still haven't decided yet because I'm still finalizing the best and worst of 2024 lists as of this particular thing, just because, it's near the end of the year, guys. We're getting down to the titty gritty. Imaginary at number 12. Yay. I ripped this thing apart from the very beginning, doing a lyrical version of the Chauncey song, the little jingle thing. Chauncey is the name of the bear that's used as a conduit as an evil presence to drag people to something called the Never Ever. I wish I had never ever seen this goddamn movie, and I felt bad because the main actress seemed to be trying. The little girl, though, no. Any parent that, or any parent or guardian of her that said, yeah, you should get into acting, that is child abuse right there. Because, no, I don't mean to knock on kids, but there are certain where you can tell they just don't have it. Maybe not as bad as the youngest brother in A Wrinkle in Time. And you know what one I'm talking about. But yeah, Imaginary had terrible scares, or a lack of any kind of good scares. It had a horrible storyline. Terrible opening sequence. Where I'm like, well, I'm in trouble. And then it just got worse, and there you are. So, number 11, Children of the Corn. Elena Kobalopoulos. Or however the hell you say it. Sounds like a goddamn, dish you'd get at some kind of Swedish or Norwegian restaurant. She's been in stuff where I think she was in My Big Fat Greek Wedding 2 and 3. I think she was. Yeah, that's right, she was. That was sadly better than this, and that's not saying much. This movie sat on the shelf for almost 3 years, and then they decided, yeah, that looks like a finished product. Let's do that. It was done during the pandemic, and to be fair, you have to cut certain corners. The corners they should have cut were off the cameras that were, recording this, and basically then cut the cameras into, and then set the cameras on fire, and then if anybody tried to save it, kick them into the fire, as our Lord and Savior's Dokken once said. So, that being said, Children of the Corn, ugly, boring, and terrible special effects, and just some of the worst acting. Again, more kids, unable to act. Parents, stop telling your kids that they can do things if they aren't capable. Let's get into the top 10 here, because we have Jeepers Creepers Reborn. I forgot that this movie came out 2 years ago. And once I was reminded, everything came flooding back. Thankfully, Victor Salva, who should be in jail, by the way, for everything he did. Check out the feedback or the stuff in regards to Clown House. And yes, he was still allowed to make movies after that, including the first Jeepers Creepers, that I loved. The second Jeepers Creepers, which I hated. The third, I think he made the third. And thankfully, it seems like he's been kicked out of Hollywood. It took long enough. That being said, Jeepers Creepers Reborn. More pandemic stuff. And yes, it was obviously using sound stages and people had to be isolated and stuff like that, but you didn't have to make it look like it was actually done on a sound stage, which they did. And the Creeper, for whatever reason, wasn't scary, and then they tried there implying they're going to do a fifth one, and why? Just why? Just why? Just fucking why? I just don't get it. Jeepers Creepers Reborn was terrible. So, now let's go to number 9. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre Netflix movie. For what reason? I did a version of George Harrison's, My Sweet Lord for the intro, which actually I think is about the only time I have been able to sing halfway decent, because I can't carry a tune in a bucket if it was reinforced with goddamn lead and titanium and every kind of metal to hold everything in there and never let it out. I still couldn't carry the goddamn tune. But Texas Chainsaw Massacre, another retcon of a retcon of a retcon. Who asked for this? I mean, who asked for Michael Bay to be involved in the 2003 one? I don't really understand why. I don't know who really asked. The original, I respect as something that, pushed horror forward and gave kind of the torture porn, horror its life, because there have been some good ones. I didn't necessarily care for the first Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but they tried everything they could to bring the story forward while not going anywhere. And somehow at 82 minutes, it still felt punishingly long. And then they tried to Laurie Strode, an actress that I think was the same woman that was in The Watchers, Olwen, whatever the hell her name is, who was not the same actress that played the girl that survived the end of the first Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Yeah, sorry, spoilers. The movie's been out for 51 fucking years. But yeah, absolutely terrible. Now, number 8, The Deliverance. Yes, they thought that Glenn Close being possessed and saying something about a nappy you-know-what was a good idea. That sadly was not even the most offensive thing about this. It couldn't mix family drama and possession well, and somehow ended up making me wish that maybe Glenn Close would just go into retirement. And even though Glenn Close is pretty good, and there are other actors that certainly try, but yeah, I hated this. I had to pause it several times because I couldn't stop laughing. I sent clips of this to my friends. They asked what I was watching. I said, this. They go, well, that's not a movie. What are you actually watching? No, that actually is. It was the scene where Glenn Close said that. And yeah. Horrible. Number 7, Skeletons in the Closet. Okay, noted abuser Terrence Howard, and noted abuser apparently Cuba Gooding Jr., and some of the worst special effects and other things going on, except not. Other things in the sense that people were trying to act on camera. The budget was about $100, and I don't know what the hell this is supposed to be. I don't know why Shudder picked this up. Shudder, I know, is desperate for programming, and they do some good stuff and get some good originals from this and other countries, but Jesus, you couldn't have been that desperate. A streaming service should have been paid to carry this goddamn thing. Tubi should have, given us money, but if they had this on there, they should have given people money for that, even though it's a free service. Skeletons in the Closet, I mean, the only thing that this movie had in its closet was apparently pictures of everybody's family that financed this goddamn thing, because nobody in their right mind would bother putting money towards something like this. Number 6, The Exorcist Believer. Body in the blood, body in the blood, body in the blood, or whatever the hell that line was. David Gordon Green, by the way, will absolutely burn in hell, and I will make sure that he burns in hell. If I outlive him, I will piss on his goddamn grave. I'll shit on his goddamn grave. How dare you, David Gordon Green? How dare you call yourself a director of anything? And that's not the only time I'm going to mention him, by the way. Spoiler alert. But yeah, The Exorcist Believer. I mean, or Exorcist a Believer. What the hell was it? I don't care. It's just unnecessary retcon. Again, yeah, ignoring Exorcist the Heretic was probably smart. Outside of that one iconic jump scare in The Exorcist 3, we probably don't need that. We had The Exorcist the beginning, and then we had The Exorcist Dominion, I think was the other one. I only ended up retro-reviewing the first and the second one, and then I just gave up on that and just decided to go watch this. I did double feature stuff. I actually drove to a city south to catch an early enough showing of this because other theaters weren't showing it for about 2 to 3 hours. And I decided to watch this, and I'm like, you have got to be goddamn kidding me. I'm like, I'm in so much trouble. What in the world was this? What do you guys want from me? The Exorcist Believer was really terrible. David Gordon Green will burn hell once again. Let's get to the top 5. Strangers, Chapter 1. Yeah, the fact this was so high on my 2024 list says a lot. You guys know how high it is if you've already seen it. The fact that this is the first of a trilogy that was supposed to have at least the second part out in 2024, and then they pushed it back. And then you got the third part that was supposed to come out early in the spring. Now I think they're going to try to stretch this out because maybe they think they can get the bad taste out of everybody's mouth, or everybody will forget that The Strangers Chapter 1 was one of the most abysmal goddamn flicks of the fucking decade so far. It was not even just horror movies. Worst goddamn movie of the decade. One of the worst, at least. Because, one, absolutely idiotic acting from the characters. Couldn't believe what in the world they thought they were doing when they, were, putting the camera on these people and like, yeah, act like you've never actually interacted with another human or you've never spoken words before. And it's just a shot-for-shot almost remake of the first one, which would be fine, except even the first one wasn't all that great upon rewatching. Was this better than Strangers Pray at Night? No, Strangers Pray at Night at least had that pool scene. At least had Christina Hendricks getting nailed. Never mind. This one didn't have any of that. It had two actors that I'm sure are capable, but they weren't capable of carrying this damn thing. And Rennie Harlan apparently was tasked with doing 3 of these. And they barely had enough material to get halfway through this. Number 4, The Craft Legacy. Who asked for a Craft sequel, at least one done this badly? I'm asking. Because I believe it was Paramount. I think it was Paramount. I want to believe it was. Whoever it was that ended up doing this goddamn thing, maybe it was 20th Century Fox. Whole point is the Craft Legacy somehow managed to simultaneously make Witch movies terrible and make me never want to praise the first Craft again. And I love me some Neve Campbell and Fairuza Balk and Robin Tunney, and I can't remember the other girl's name. But goddamn, not only were they great characters and iconic for 90s horror cinema, they all looked good, still do, I assume. And the fact that this basically just shat on all that was astonishing, and the girls in this didn't even have any chemistry, and it's not their fault. And trying to revamp something isn't the worst thing if you try. And if I recall right, David Duchovny was in this. And I know he's in Pet Sematary Bloodlines. Who asked for this? Number 3, Firestarter. Oh, fuck you, Firestarter. Even the 1984 version wasn't great. I still laugh at the fact that this movie was actually released on Peacock. It was released simultaneously on Peacock and in theaters the day of, but usually a movie like this, they'll have it out in theaters and then early Friday morning, they'll put it right out on the streaming service. Somebody hit, send early. Because by the time I actually got done retro-viewing the first one, I had just put that review up. I saw, oh, wait a second. It's I think it's 6 o'clock. I'm on the West Coast. And I go, oh, they already have it up. Well, I'll fire this up. Within the first 10 minutes, I'm like, what? And it's not actually the blandest that Zac Efron would act in a movie. That was a little bit later on, like last year around this time. You know what I'm talking about. All the inaccuracies of the Iron Claw and everything. Okay, I'm done. The Firestarter, look, I didn't like the pet violence, even though it was goofy and everything, but I didn't like the movie in general. And I didn't think that it was going to be great, but it somehow didn't even meet my expectations that were in the fucking Earth's core. Yeah, a terrible remake and terrible, twisting around as a story. Whatever. Number 2, by the way, is 2 movies. I'm Human Centipede them together. Nobody Sleeps in the Woods Tonight 1 and 2. I didn't mind the main actress. I think she has potential, but Norwegian horror something, whatever, with mutants and rocks. And then the second one somehow wanted to try to humanize them. Thank God we haven't gotten a third one. That was my worries. We were going to get a third one. Now, thankfully, we haven't. I think they're away from that. Because God forbid if they do a third one. I'll watch it. But I don't really want to. That being said, Nobody Sleeps in the Woods Tonight 1 and 2, absolutely horrendous. Now, number 1, Halloween Ends. Yeah, let's just go and put David Gordon Green's name in bold letters and bold neon letters and say, fuck you, David Gordon Green. How dare you? Fuck his parents for giving birth to him. Because how dare you? How dare you put this kind of person on goddamn Earth that will ruin the fucking Halloween franchise? The 2018 Halloween movie I loved, even if it did have its issues. Upon rewatching, it has its issues. But I'll take that over Kills, and I'll take it over Halloween Ends. Let's introduce Corey. Let's have, Jamie Lee Curtis's daughter. The name escapes me right now because I've tried to put a bunch of this movie out of my mind. Getting a stupid bad romance. And Michael Myers is living in the sewer. And then we try to make... If they had gone with introducing the Corey character maybe in Kills and done this, it still wouldn't have been well received, but it would have been better than what they ended up doing here. But this ended up being my worst horror movie, of the decade so far, because it's just that goddamn abysmal. It shits on everything. It's even worse than Halloween Resurrection, which says a lot. And people are like, oh, but it'll be just as well received as Season of the Witch. I'm going to say right now, Season of the Witch is fucking dog shit. I mean, it's funny, and I can appreciate a couple things about it, but realistically, as far as a horror movie, I mean, Silver Shamrock, it's really about the only thing that gets stuck in your head. And Tom Skerritt yelling, stop it, stop it. That's when they wanted him to be in another season of Picket Fences. Bet you didn't expect a Picket Fences goddamn reference. So that being said, Halloween Ends, my worst horror movie of the decade so far. So let me know your worst horror movies of the decade so far in the comments, please. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter, Letterboxd, and Blue Sky handles in the description. I'm John Ritlin. I'll see you soon.